Let's wait for another 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. Oh, but it's okay. I just want to point. It's okay. I can turn it here.
Could we start?
Yes,
Okay.
let's start.
Welcome to another member seminar of BIMSA. It's an honor to have Professor Lynn Heller, who's going to talk about navigating the space of surfaces.
Okay. Many thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk here, and thank you for setting up this seminar. Real surfaces, yes. I'm differential geometer, yeah. And well, in my heart, I guess I'm a complex person, so I won. But then, well, I think they are called Riemann surfaces. So, okay. Okay. So, well, what you see the picture is kind of an abstract version of the genus 2 constant mean curvature surface I draw at some point in my life. And my group is called Geometrie-Werkstatt, which means geometry lab in German. And if you go to geometrywerkstatt.com, you will see a lot of more pictures than I'm showing today. And very unfortunate, the projector doesn't show the colors correctly. Yeah, but okay. Well, as you know, it's kind of a family business here with mathematics and us. So I will only present parts of our research today, and in 4 weeks, Sebastian will follow up with another talk about surface theory. But you will see why the cut is kind of canonical and the flavor of mathematics is very good, okay, in the 2 parts. Oh, yeah. Let's start. So my goal in my life, or in my math life, is to find optimal realizations of Riemann surfaces, okay? What are Riemann surfaces? It's just 2-dimensional real surface, okay? And then you put on that, okay, a way of measuring angles. And I want to construct compact surfaces most of the time. And for compact surfaces, you might all know, it's just a sphere with G handles attached to it. Okay, what you see here is a genus 1 surface, the Clifford torus. And I want to put such a Riemann surface into R3 today. Most of the time it's rather S3. And I want to do it in a conformal way, meaning it should preserve the way I'm measuring angles. And it should be an immersion, no edges, no corners. Well, if one wants to have anything optimal, you will need something like energy. What I'm taking is the Willmore energy, the integral of mean curvature squared. What is the mean curvature, you might ask? So if you look at the surface here, okay, you take any point, there are curves to that point, the white ones, okay? Those will have a curvature. Yeah? At every point, there's lots of curves going through them. They all have curvature. Okay, and you take the maximum one and the minimum one, and the mean between those. No, that's a Gaussian curvature. The mean curvature is the mean of these two, maximum, minimum curvature. There's different one. And up to that scalar curvature normalization, you might want, it's just difference of these minimal, maximal curvature squared. So for a round sphere or for a plane, those are the same all the time. So basically, that's where the Willmore energy has its minimum. So that's round spheres. And also, I should say, if you do it correctly, the Willmore energy is conformally invariant, in particular scale invariant. And I should say it's kind of related to bending energy in physics. In mathematical biology, it's called Helfrich energy. It has some other factors. The main factor is the Willmore energy, plus some factors for the Gaussian curvature. And recently, we saw a paper that relates the Leibniz energy, its probability theory, also to Wilmer energy. It shares the same property that it kind of measures the roundness of the surface. As I said, for round spheres, it's kind of the minimum. And but it's only for curves. So it's kind of surprising, or it's kind of mysterious how it relates, but somehow it appears as well. So when you do optimization, that's what I said. And the examples include minimal surfaces, so critical points of the area functional, and also constant in curvature surfaces with a critical point with enclosed area constraint, but in any space form. So it's kind of a unified way to treat all these surfaces in R3, S3, or hyperbolic 3 space in the same setup. Okay. As I said, the round sphere has energy 4 pi, because that's the area of the surface. That's normalization we take. And that's the minimum. And this Clifford torus here, which is a very famous surface, has energy 2 pi squared. And there's these two very famous conjectures about this surface. Basically, that is the optimal realization of my torus, because the Wilmer conjecture says the minimum of the Wilmer energy is 2 pi squared up to conformal transformations. And the Lawson conjecture says that the only minimal surface is the round 3 sphere without self-intersection is that particular surface. Okay. Of course, I should say I project it down to R3. So this thing is not minimal in R3, but it's still Wilmer because it's just a nicer thing. That's why I like the Wilmer energy. Yeah. Okay. So optimization always leads to some kind of geometric PDEs I want to solve, and I will write down the equation for you later. It's the only formula in my talk. Okay. So the goal of my research in general is to construct examples, investigate their properties, and if I know enough, I would like to investigate the moduli space of all solutions. Okay. Today, I will restrict to N being a torus only, and Sebastian will do the higher genus case. And you will see the mathematics is very, very different, although the questions are kind of the same. Because we are at BIMSA, let's look at applications first. Okay. The first one is the artwork I found about image of our brain, and conformal mappings are used for the cartography of our brain. Okay. And well, those are minimal surfaces. The first one might not surprise you. That's just a soap bubble with boundary values. So the soap film will definitely minimize the area. The second one is something I learned just like 4 weeks ago. That when you have butterfly wings, it's kind of fluorescent. The reason for that is the fine structure of those butterfly wings are triply periodic minimal surfaces. In this case, a gyroid. So kind of the application of minimal surfaces in these kind of material sciences, or actually for crystals and so on. Okay. The building there you see, it's a Phoenix building in Beijing. So we live directly in that neighborhood. That's why I took that picture. It's just saying that architecture of that particular type uses, or freeform design uses surface or discrete differential geometry, rather where integrable system transforms of the surfaces are used for these supporting structures. And in particular, when you have a model already, you want to change a bit of that model. You don't want to start at scratch again, right? But rather you want to use this integrable structure to do your lines in a systematic way, so that when you change one line, you can basically extend it and not redo everything again. So that's the application in architecture. Then there's application in computer graphics. So basically, this is a conformal Wilmer flow. So that's what the from a cup to a donut. So the topology is correct. And you can see why it's conformal Wilmer flow is because the formula there, it's not stretched too much. You can still read it everywhere. Okay. So this is a flow that is not mathematically studied. It's really a computer science flow. And the idea is really to do deformation on the curvature only, and then prescribe the curvatures that can be integrated to a surface. So it makes deformation a lot easier than the actual Wilmot flow, the gradient flow to the energy. And why are there those things used? First, in 3D films, right? The art director will tell you to change the scene slightly, but you don't want to recompute all the texture you put onto your scene. Okay, you want to do this change of your art director as close as possible to their need, but don't compute everything anew. The second application is when you have rough 3D data, for example, from face screening, and you want to smooth this noise out. And you would also use some type of Wilmot flow to do that, but you can't do that. The last one is math biology, and our red blood cells are Wilmot spheres, okay, with a so-called isoperimetric ratio constraint. What is that? That's just the surface of your cell divided by a certain power of the volume, enclosed volume. That's how they look like. And under this microscope, you can actually see the blood cells move, and those movements are exactly these transformations. Well, going back to math, when we are doing Riemann surfaces or optimal realizations of those, we want to discuss what kind of Riemann surface structure appears first. Okay?
Can I ask you said the blood cells move under Mobius transformation?
Yes, if you don't put energy on it, it will move a bit, swinging a bit, and those are Mobius transformation because it doesn't change the energy. Yeah. So you can actually observe like invariance of your energy, right? Under that, which is actually very fun. Okay, so let's discuss Riemann surface structures of tori. I showed you already. So this square can be mapped to the cliff of torus without any seams. Okay, so how to interpret the square? That would be C modulo certain lattice. The lattice given by the edges of your square. Okay. Yeah. I cannot see. So there are two arrows, and because of conformal type, the way you imagine angles will not change on the rotations or scaling. You can, prescribe your first vector to be 1, 0 vector, and because it's a square, the second is on the imaginary axis. Okay. If you have another surface, this is the Wilmot surface. You can still parameter it here, but you can not do it conformally. You have to do it. Take another vector here in the shaded area, which you cannot see, which is the area between these two lines. Like this one here, I admit I didn't compute that. It's really the conformal type of my example, but that's for the purpose of teaching. Yeah. Okay, you can, if you choose another vector, you will be able to parameterize this thing conformally. Okay. You could also take the mirrored vector on the other side of this imaginary axis. Okay, what it results in is just taking the surface inside out. So it doesn't change the energy, definitely. So today I will just restrict to the right hand stripe. So every immersion, you can see here, you can associate such a vector so that we can parameterize my surface to be conformal. So that's my pi. And of course, it doesn't have nice properties because the shaded area has singularity side. You just omit that part, okay? But so what is the question I'm interested in? If I fix the second vector to be AB, anything inside my shaded or not shaded here area, then what is the surface minimizing my Wilmot energy? Okay, for the square type, I know that was the Wilmot conjecture and the Wilmot surface, the Clifford torus I showed you before. What are the others? Well, let's talk about existence first. Even that is kind of not completely solved. Okay, so it's a result by Kubert and Schätzler. So here, Freiburg and Tübingen. So if you fix the conformal class to be AB, so the blue vector to have coordinate A and B in R2, then you need an example of that conformal class mapping into R3 with energy below a certain threshold, which is 8 pi. Why? One, because 8 pi is the energy of 2 spheres, and you can have surfaces which are double cover of a sphere with branch point. That's definitely not the immersion, not what you want. And second, there's a Li and Yao estimate saying anything below 8 pi will be embedded, so no self-intersections. Okay, if these assumptions are satisfied, then the minimizer exists, and we will have the Lagrange equation like that. So delta pi 1 and pi 2 are just variations of A and B, and lambda and mu are the Lagrange multipliers. You see, it's fourth order, and it's nonlinear. Okay. And it's, of course, only for tori. Yeah. It is a constraint part. Now, there's a subtlety which has been solved by Schätzler here, because the projection to this Teichmuller space or to this shaded area I was talking about is not surjective everywhere for every immersion. That means if it's not, then the pre-image of that thing is not a manifold anymore in the space of immersions. And normally, the Lagrange multiplier setup is not fulfilled. And it's not clear that it still satisfies such a Lagrange equation. So basically, Schätzler solved that problem. And I should say, what is isothermic surfaces? It's the existence of a conformal and curvature line parametrization. So the lines are really curves with maximal and minimal curvature at each point. Well, for tori, don't forget about that again, if you don't know it already. It's just minimal or constant in curvature surfaces in space forms. Okay, those are difficult. Well, it's kind of clear because minimal and constant in curvature means H is 0 or H is constant. So instead of a fourth order of PDE, we have only order 2. Okay, if you have such a result, what you need are examples. Well, how to get examples? The easiest one is to take a curve, because for tori at least, we can have a 1-parameter family of symmetries. Okay, that doesn't really hold for homogeneous surfaces. Okay, if you take, for example, the upper half plane and just a closed curve inside there, okay, and view the upper half plane as a hyperbolic plane, you will see that the Willmore energy is in fact the elastic curve energy in the hyperbolic plane. So integral of the curvature square of that curve. If you rotate now an elastic curve with length constraint, then it will be constrained Willmore. But no, there. But the surface will be always isothermic, so it must be CMC or minimal in a space form and of rectangular conformal type. The second vector is always in the imaginary axis. Okay, so let's do this case. So this is the Clifford torus, and we have a whole family of surfaces, and they are all constant in curvature in S3. And it should say monotonically increasing Willmore energy. Okay, it starts, well, it ends now at 2 planes, which are 2 geodesic spheres in S3. So 8 pi energy, 2 spheres. And if you go back, it will go to the Clifford torus with 2 pi squared. So for this whole family, and for the associated conformal type, we will have that if minimizer exists. And I should say it, of course, starts here and goes all the way up. Okay, so the two-law conjecture says that those are actually the constrained Willmore minimizers for rectangular conformal. So what is mathematically shown? There's Ndiaye Schätzler results of his at Howard University in DC. That's very close to the Clifford torus. They are real minimizers. And they do it via an implicit function theorem argument by relaxing the constraint. Because we are here at the isothermic surface, really a singularity of the moduli space. Okay. And the other thing is something I showed with Sebastian and Jack, that the family of surfaces I showed you, which has a parameter b, which is the length of, of my upper vector, okay? All these surfaces are constrained Willmore stable, so they are very good candidates. And they actually minimize the Willmore energy, at least among the isothermic immersions. with conformal class AB for any A. So this one has conformal class 0B, AB here. As I told you before, isothermic surfaces are minimal OCMC in a space form. And we know already the constant in curvature surfaces in S3 are classified, okay? They are all the embedded ones below 8 pi energy are just what I showed you before, but with probably many more lobes. So of course, simplest one should have least energy. But just for people who knows it, it's not only Sinch-Gordon, which is the CMC one in S3, which gives these isothermic surfaces, but also the other hierarchy here does it. And the simplest example is actually elastic figure 8 in the hyperbolic plane, which you cannot see here because it should be so have circle here. Huh? And if you rotate it, that's the surface you obtain. And this blue thing here, what is actually the boundary of the hyperbolic 3 space. Okay, so R3 is the inside hyperbolic 3 space, the boundary of it, S2, and the outside hyperbolic 3 space. And on outside and inside, the surface has constant mean curvature, and it glues together perfectly along the infinity boundary to a smooth surface. And of course, in this setup with the curve, you don't even see that problem. Okay, so it doesn't, meaning that just because it's isothermic, it doesn't really mean that in that space form, it will be a torus. Okay, this can happen. And this was first observed by Babic-Rubenko. They construct a minimal immersion, actually. But it has a spectral genus 3, which was meaning it's more complicated than this one. Okay, so these are the simplest examples. Go back. And the conjecture, because it's also our simplest one in the Koch-Gordon hierarchy, it should be constrained remote stable as well. The other one was the simplest one in this hierarchy. But it does not contradict Yau's conjecture on the Wilmot, on the Clifford torus being the only stable Wilmot surface, because when mean curvature goes to 0, that little loop goes to the infinity boundary of my H2, and the surface will be an inverted catenoid or catenoid. So the minimal case doesn't exist, but for all CMC cases, we have a second, pretty much sure, second stable candidate. So that's so much for the rectangular conformal types, okay? What about the others? Well, we don't have existence of minimizers, but maybe we have existence of critical points. And that's something I showed in my thesis, that there's always an option of isometrically immersing the 3-sphere into a 3-sphere as a constrained Wilmot immersion. For that, we just take a curve on S2, okay? It can take the pre-image under the Hopf vibration. And you can see those are the surfaces that are not minimizers because they have 3 lobes and not 2. Yeah. The observation here is that the conformal type is just the enclosed area up to some orientation and the length of the curve. So this will be the B, and this is the A component. Okay, and what I did was just to take appropriate curve and then show that the minimizer of the elastic curve energy on the sphere exists, and then it will be a constrained Wilmot surface. As a side remark, for Hopf tori, the conformal constraint and the isoparametric constraint, as in this blood cell example, is the same. So basically, if we would force our blood cells to be torus type, then they should look like that with 2 lobes, basically.
The pre-image was on the which map?
Hopf vibration.
Hopf.
Okay. So there was a conjecture saying that the minimizers of non-rectangular class should be of Hopf type. So it's kind of a generalized rotation, and you see that there's some twist in these lines here. Okay. Well, before proving any conjectures about Hopf, we did experiments. That's something I did with my master's student like 10 years ago, but never bothered to publish. We just started at some type of Hopf, so some curve in the 2-sphere, take the pre-image and the Hopf vibration, which gives me certain conformal types. Okay, and I just flow it with this conformal Wummel flow that computer science people use. Okay, and you see the minimal energies here. Oh, two things to observe. They look very much not like Hopf torus. Well, it took me a bit to figure out that's not. But the Wummel energies are like below 8 pi when we are close enough to the rectangular type. But here we have definitely a lot of examples where the Wummel energy does not go under 8 pi. So where we, from analysis side, don't even have existence of our candidates. Well, we did a lot more experiments, those pictures. This line here are very close to our two-lobe examples in the rectangular limit. They're just those surfaces slightly twisted. And you can twist more if you increase this A, okay? And you can also see this one here even has self-intersections. So I should say those experiments should be taken with a grain of salt. I mean, of course, the surface moves, okay, continuously inside this family, but the initial conditions we took was of a certain spin structure type, and the flow doesn't only preserve the conformal structure, but also the spin structure. So there should be maybe other examples if we start at another spin structure or just place in the Teichmüller space. Okay. Well, okay. And so these are experiment. Well, we just take a mesh, okay, triangle mesh of the thing, and compute their discrete Wummel energy, and we take that, computer science flow and compute, go into a direction where the conformal type is preserved and things become smoother or has lower energy, and compute at the end again the discrete Wummel energy. Okay, so those are all the experiments we've done. Every blue dot, we did such a video, basically. So this is the right strip of my conformal type, and well, that's as high as we could get. And there are some singularities at the hexagonal conformal type, and this is we associate to any of these points a minimal energy, the end point of our. This is how, well, these are numerical problems we had, and yeah, this is how the graph looked like. Two observations, okay? First of all, the slope at 0 is positive, okay? As I said, it's only half of the conformal types. The other half here is just mirrored. It should have the same energy. So if the slope at 0, A equals 0 is not 0, meaning the minimal energy as a graph over the space of conformal type is not C1 at our rectangular conformal types. Okay, if we could show that, like theoretically, then these minimizers are definitely isothermic. And then that's why we did our research on isothermic minimizers at all. The second thing is you can observe that if we fix B to be a certain stripe and go this way, then the minimal energy is monotonically increasing and also concave. Okay, so that's experiments, but what is shown, so me and Cheh and Yai, we have shown, first of all, identified what those surfaces are. Okay, the not Hopf, those would be 1-1 equivariant, this is 1-2, and the Hopf two-lobe would be 1-1 and an intrinsic period 2, meaning the number of periods of the curvature till the surface closes. And here we have only period 1. We can write them down in terms of elliptic functions very explicitly. And moreover, can show this concavity property where we can identify the minimizers. Okay. Some difficulties we are using, so if in the previous work, Cheh and Rainer Schätzle, they use implicit function theorem argument. And now we have a 0 of the differential. It's not invertible. We need to use bifurcation theory. And moreover, it's from a singularity set of our moduli space. Okay, so we need to set up the functional and the constraint correctly to bifurcate in the correct direction, because there exist many, many families of constrainable motori that's known, which bifurcate from the curvatorus and also copes-by. Like basically arbitrary lobe count can bifurcate from there, and we want only the 2 lobe guys or 1 lobe guys here. Okay, I have kind of 2 minutes left, although I started. I would like to end with a conjecture, very pretty conjecture. So 2 videos on the moduli space of constant mean curvature tori in On3. So that's a constant mean curvature torus, and the conjecture is called Sokov conjecture, kind of very romantic name. So the idea is you start with your favorite cylinder, and then you can bend your favorite cylinder into the shape of your favorite curve, which is here, well, very boringly, only a circle. So in the middle, we have the lobe count, so number of bubbles. On the right, we have the conformal type. And this one here are the branch points of the so-called spectral curve. If it doesn't tell you anything, so these are constant mean curvature surfaces, so it's like the Cinch-Gordon hierarchy. And associated to that, if we want to parameterize surfaces, we need a hyperelliptic curve, which is branched at these red points. They come in pairs, lambda and lambda bar inverse, which is not here. And when the thing, so basically all the parameterization depends on functions on this spectral curve. And as you can see, when the thing becomes straight, 2 of these things, or half of the branch point, collapse into this green point where we reconstruct the surface. And if you blow up the thing, we will see the nonlinear Schrödinger. Okay, that's the conjecture, that's what the experiments say. Okay. Any cylinder, half of them can collapse into this green point, which is the reconstruction point or zip point. Just another one, because circles are kind of silly and boring. You can take this 5-star curve as well, and here we have the associated CMC surface. And well, there's a discussion maybe on what exactly the soul curve is. It could be actually also the circle, because this 5 thing goes around the circle as well. So there is actually a hierarchy of soul curves, if you like. But if you move in direction in the either spectral direction or the direction where you preserve in the nonlinear Schrödinger hierarchy the closeness of the curve and the ability of it being a critical point of something, the CMC surfaces would just follow, okay, completely aligned. So it reduces the problem of understanding the moduli space here into 2 problems. One, the nonlinear Schrödinger hierarchy, so the space curves, and the other, the CMC cylinders only. Okay. That's all I had to say. Many thanks.
Any questions?
Lynn, how unique is this in the conformal class?
Can you say it again?
How unique are these surfaces in the given conformal class?
How unique are these surfaces in the given conformal class?
Well, I don't, so the experiments we have done only with 1 type of surfaces. For the results we show, they are unique. Right, let me try to go back. So this is unique.
Okay.
Curvatorus is unique, yes.
Yeah. The second question, can you do some picture experiment to show the additive law for elliptic curve? I want to see on this surface you show that the toroid has an additive structure. 2 points add up to be another point. So given these two surfaces, you can see in free space, can you show how they associate a pair of points to another point?
I need to think about that, but I think it's possible, yes.
So let's say you take a tori, you take a straight line in R3, so it will intersect them in several points. Can you do addition under the law of the elliptic curve? See how they end up.
Should be possible. Yes, I think so.
I think it would be nice to see how they look like. I want to see the distribution. If the curve, elliptic curve is defined, well, I mean over number field or whatever, I want to see how the CM point looks like.
Yeah.
On the curve, but can we see it? Can you do some some calculation?
I think so.
I mean, it'd be nice to see the calculation.
No problem. Should work. Yes.
So elliptic curve, they're integer points, residual points on the elliptic curve. I want to see how they distribute on actually seeing it.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Okay, there'll be a lot of fun, a lot of interesting calculation.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Slava,
maybe we can get some number 3 out of it.
Yes, sure. Will do.
Okay, so I have maybe non-mathematical questions. So you began with this problem of minimizing Wilmore energy. Yes. So I know that there are problems in physics that reduce to minimizing the Gaussian curvature, and you gave some examples that minimize this mean curvature. Yes. Can you give like intuitive? If I have a physical problem, which kind of curvature do I need to minimize? Is there like intuitive reason?
So for me personally, so for me, I want to have nice surfaces. That's why I'm minimizing Wilmore energy, because it makes the surface round. So, but it's topological. There are topological constraints, right? So it's like it's only Gaussian curvature only depends on the metric of the surface, while mean curvature is more flexible.
Can you give more information about?
It's more related to the immersion itself, while Gaussian curvature is basically the thing as a manifold. So it doesn't really depend on how you, no, they're not quite true, but how you really immerse it into space, how it's realized. So for the actual realization, if you really want to do this proper immersion, it's far more important to have the mean curvature. So it measures far better how the submanifold works. Like the other one is more like on the metric side only. So it doesn't have that much.
Any more questions? So can I ask you, these soul curves, how do you pick them?
Well, that's one of the things that it's very difficult to make precise. The idea is you have this spectral curve here, which has a lot of branch points, and then you would deform all these branch points in a way so that the curve or the surface stays closed. That's called Witten deformation. Okay, and the idea is half of those branch points, okay, I can collapse into one point. So that's get a very high order zero here. And those curves that you rescale become the spectral curve of the soul curve, which is nonlinear Schrödinger hierarchy or space curves. So that's how on the algebraic side it would look like, okay? But then if you have more than one pair collapsing, you can decide on the speed of different pairs collapse and how they relate to each other when they all collapse at once or with different speed, so that you get a hierarchy of soul curves, basically.
I see. So this does this say something about the moduli space of these surfaces that satisfy the mean curvature
Yes.
constraint
So-
is finite type, is compact.
Yeah,
I mean, up to topological properties.
it's
Because
oh,
in the level of a spectral curves, isn't it finitely generated?
so for every spectral genus, there's at least one example. So it's like, but they're all of finite type in this sense. They're all finite. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
More questions?
Just a naive question. So, if you change the Willmore functional so that it's not the mean curvature squared, but it's just the absolute value, can we still? I mean, do we know how to solve that?
What do you
Or
mean
construct solutions? Yeah. So instead of minimizing square of h, minimize the absolute value of h.
Well, I'm in codimension 1 only, so there's no huge difference. But if you are, of course, in codimension 2, you would need to take the absolute values. But then, well, it's kind of it's far more difficult to show nice pictures, right? So I'm interested in this codimension 1 case just for the sake of nice pictures.
But even in the codimension 1 case, I mean, like, I assume that analytically, maybe it's harder to deal with the absolute value. I'm just trying to get a feel for like if there are physical motivations for considering squared rather than other powers.
I mean, in codimension 1, there's just one normal, so that's just h is just a function. So there's what? The exponent?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean h to the p?
Yes.
There are work on that. So it's like LP norm. I think, yeah, but I think that why the squared is used because it's basically the critical exponent in the all the analysis where the resistance and so on doesn't work. So that's why all the existence and so on has problems. And you need this. Yes.
Yep.
For the other piece, not. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but there's work on this. Yeah, in particular, it relates to these isoparametric concepts. Yeah. So on the LP, I mean, Mondino did it quite a bit.
Okay, thank you.
More questions?
So maybe I missed the introduction, but so how does this relate to the proof of the Willmore connector?
Well,
is this somehow
okay.
looking at special situations, or how can you look at it from that point of view? Okay.
Well, the two-loop conjecture is, of course, only a constraint of the minimizers of the Willmore energy inside the rectangular conformal class. Okay. So now, if that is true, like this kind of slope, the first that is monotonically increasing anyway, and also the slope is non-zero at 0, then the rectangular minimizers, first of all, must be isothermic, and therefore must be the two-loop. And if we can prove monotonicity, the minimizers will be at the rectangular conformal. In this case, it would be a second proof of the Willmore conjecture. So that part. And it's none of these results, like I introduced, not by Schätzler and Ndiaye, nor the one by me and Ndiaye, uses the Willmore conjecture. It only uses Yau's result on the Clifford torus being the unique minimizer in its conformal class.
So the conjecture assumes this would be a special case of the conjecture that you would prove it in that way, or
sure. Which one is the special case?
Well, I'm not sure. So you're talking about this rectangular.
Yes.
And is that part of the conjecture, so to speak?
No, it's kind of different. Okay. Yeah. This in the strong formulation. Sorry, in the strong formulation, the two-loop conjecture just says that it's minimizers in its conformal class. Okay, meaning, well, it starts at the Clifford torus because the Clifford torus is minimizer in its conformal class. That was known before the Wilmore conjecture solved. But it's not going to the right. So this graph here could have bumps and so on, right? It could be concave and going down somewhere else, could be lower than the rectangular conformance. Okay, that's not clear. But in a strong formulation, that would be that the TULIP are minimizers for the whole line. Okay, for when you fix B for all A, in this case, it would be more general than the Wilmore conjecture.
Okay, thanks.
More questions? Okay, if no more questions, let's thank Lynn for fantastic talk. Okay, see you everybody next week. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you.
You set the bar